Ooby-doo, it's everyone's favorite vintage lens, Boomer. Today we're going to look at the Sony Alpha or A3000 coupled with multi-coated lens made in Japan, Sigma Zoom Master 1 to 2.8-4, 35 to 70 millimeter. I bought this from B&H. I bought 3 lenses. They were cheap. For some reason, they had a whole bunch of used stuff, which for a long time they had almost nothing. So I had all this used stuff, and it was reasonably priced. The reason I bought it, and I always badmouth Sigma, is because it was 9+, and in parentheses, it had minor scratches. So I said, oh, that sounds interesting. I think I'll get it. So cosmetically, it's in beautiful shape. Little or no wear. What's the matter with me? Even the rubber, this rubber ring is not distorted or anything. So, and it's a Nikon F mount, and it's on a photodiox dumb adapter onto the E mount. So I cleaned it off. It was a little, shall we say, had residue on it. The lenses looked dirty. I couldn't tell if they had something on the inside. So I cleaned them off really good. I said, hey, the interior is like really clean. So then I noticed that there are some specks here, right around here. There are some specks, and I thought it was some sort of residue, right? So I got alcohol and some other solvents, and what it is, those are actually digs in the glass. There's 1, 2, 3 big ones and a couple small ones. So I said, oh, crap. So I said, oh, maybe it doesn't matter, you know. I wonder how it got those scratches there. Was it dropped or something? So this is a goofy lens, and I'll show you why. Since it's a variable aperture, you see they have this variable aperture thing here. It says 35 millimeter and 70 millimeter, and then what the aperture is going to be. So when at 70 millimeters, 4, 5.6, but it doesn't show that. You just have to remember that. So if you stick it at f2.8, right, and you're at 70 millimeters, that's really f4. And the same thing here. If you go to f16, what does this thing say? f16 is really f22 at 70 millimeters. So this aperture ring is only has a direct correlation when you're at 35 millimeters. So it stops on f22 at 35 millimeters, but doesn't say it does anything at f16. Maybe it's f32. Maybe they don't recommend you use that. So in daylight, if you're on f8, you would go from f8 to f11. Let's look at that chart again. f8 is f11. Okay. So what about this? This is it's 20 megapixels. It's 20 megapixels. It has an eye-level electronic viewfinder. It's a low resolution, but it's usable. It has this screen, which isn't high resolution. It's medium resolution. For the purpose of using manual lenses, you have to put in an M. You have to go in the menu and select shoot without a lens, right? And then you can pick manual focus assist. I also have it on peaking color. So when you go into focus, everything has like a red outline on it. The manual focus assist, the zoom manual focus assist, only works on the rear screen. It doesn't work on the viewfinder, which is sucky. You have to press this button to switch between the viewfinder and the LCD. So that's not that bad. You do see the shutter speeds on the screen. See, you can see those the numbers change, and it tells you display. Oh, sorry. There we go. See, this goes plus or minus, and then you know what is 0. It's correct. Okay, so that's pretty good. The camera takes really good, clean pictures up to ISO 400. They're relatively noise-free. 800, they start getting a little noisier, and then as you go higher, it gets progressively noisier. So the camera's a nice camera. And it has the Sony has built-in panorama mode and some other modes. So what about this lens? Well, I did some preliminary studies on the very cold conditions. I went to a city called Hackensack. I took some street scenes, and throughout the whole zoom range, the central resolution and clarity is excellent, without a doubt. That central portion. Wide open is usable, and the central portion stays nice and sharp, which is great because 99.9% of the time your subject matter is always going to be in the middle. Now, street scenes mean taking pictures of buildings. Sometimes you're parallel to them, sometimes you're oblique, which can mean you're at an obtuse or an acute angle to a building. And I noticed that in the wide angle, when you're in wide angle, what's in focus in the center looks nice and sharp. But as you get progressively away from the center, well, it just gets fuzzier. Stop down to f11 or f16, they're really nice, but wide open, it does have that issue. Whereas if you're in 70 millimeters, the definition and sharpness is pretty much even across the field as long as you're stopped down. Now, it was really bright, sunshine. I couldn't use the LCD screen to use the manual focus zoom, so I was just using peaking and the magnifier. And at 28 millimeters, everything looks like it's in focus. But then when I was pixel peeping at home, the focus was the depth of field was very shallow. So if I focus on something that was like a street scene where something was 10 feet away, it looked like stuff that was more than 50 feet away was not in focus. So it looks like I would recommend this lens, f11 and f16 and even f22 at 28 millimeters. Now, aside from that, the combination of the lens and the camera had great color, great contrast. I used a lens hood, and I didn't notice any flaring. So the optics must be clean because the contrast looked really nice. But it does seem to have this issue, which may be related to this. If it got dropped or something and it hit this glass, well, then maybe something could be out of kilter. But is it a bad lens? No, it's not a bad lens. It's totally automatic. The click stops could be a little bit better. If you go like this, it's not so bad, but sometimes when you're trying to move one, it's a little goofy. You know, like f8. It lines up, but then, oh, look at it, it has half f-stops. But when you're going onesies like this, it's sort of hard to, snap it in. But if you go like this, it's much more easier. So why don't we just look at some pictures, and then you can decide. Now, if you get one in better condition without digs on the front element, maybe you'll get better results at 28 millimeters. So it's hard to say. Oh, there's one other thing. It only focuses down to 1.8 feet, which is pretty cheesy. 1.8 feet, that's almost 24 inches, right? 1 inch is 12 inches. If it said 1.5, that would be 6, that would be 18. What's 8.8 feet since it's 12 inches? I'm trying to figure it out. Well, say it's like 20 inches closest focusing. So you got to keep that in mind. Otherwise, it was a good value. I mean, if you want to get some cheap vintage lens and you just want to shoot snapshots, this is more than adequate. But remember, you got to start at f8 and smaller apertures. And if you're shooting more wide open, you got to remember that, that's the thing. It was I just doing some shots in my living room, and I was parallel to a wall, and I was using the flash. The flash pops up all the time, right? Well, then it seemed to work really good. Or if things are perfectly parallel, then it seemed to work pretty good. It was pretty even. You could definitely see the corners and the sides getting soft, but the center remained sharp. But in real world, when you've got 3D objects that are closer and further away, well, then you're going to notice that there's some extreme softiness off to the edges, the sides. But in the middle, it's really, really good. I'll have to say that. I was impressed with the middle. Now, there's one other thing. Because this screen is medium resolution, it's hard, even with the zoom, the magnifying manual zoom, it's hard to nail the focus exactly. And then your depth of field may be off, and you may be less than satisfied with the results. But I stuck it on another Sony camera that had a more high resolution screen, and I used a hood man magnifier, and it got really good results. So you have to keep that in mind also. All right, let's look at some pictures. Some expensive advertising, huh? Ours is the Sigma 35 to 70 millimeter f2.8 to f4 on a Nikon F mount. The Whiskey Priest. This used to be some other restaurant or something, but it changed. That's why I like to go to Hackensack every once in a while to see which stores closed down and what opened up and who's still there, and if they built any new buildings and stuff like that. So here's a pixel peep. Look at that sign. Oh man, that sign must have been there for a long time, huh? But everything else is sharp here. This is a central view, and it did a really excellent job. I was having trouble focusing with the peaking feature, where when the camera says it's in focus, everything has like red outline on it. It was too bright for me to use the LCD screen and do the manual zoom focusing. Now here's a street view. It looks pretty decent at this format. But here's a picture of the lights. They're definitely blurry. This is stopped at f8, so I don't know what happened there, why it looks a little fuzzy there. It's acceptable, but it's not quite. But here's the same picture, and this is in the central median, and look how sharp that is. Dead nut sharp. Really excellent. Here's another example of this building. I focused on that corner in the middle of the picture, right? And it looks really nice, colorful, not too much distortion. There's a little perspective distortion. Here's a central picture. It's towards the top of the frame, but still in the center of the this field of view. And here, but look at this corner. This is I see how this looks aberrated there. Is it out of focus aberrated? It's hard to tell. I mean, it's just not crisp focusing. And here's another side. This is the left side. You can definitely see going from right to left, it gets blurry. What's that spherical aberration? I don't know. Now here's that was a 28 millimeter. This is the 70 millimeter. And look how sharp that is. That's a center picture. That's a dead nut sharp, really. And look at here's an enlarged section of that, and that's super sharp. H stands for Hackensack. But look at the building, how sharp it is. Here's that sign, right, from that previous picture. Look how sharp that is. That's really sharp at 70 millimeters. This is a 28 millimeter, 35 millimeter. Why did I think it was a 28 millimeter? But apparently, when I used to peak focusing, it focused on that post in the front, and everything else was sort of blurry if you looked at it close up. This is the Saigon. They have a strange graphic design. It's central. It looks really nice in the center. B picture. This is the upper sort of central. That looks acceptable to me. It's starting to get a little soft off to the right. This is the far right, down the street at f8. It's blurry. That means I focus too forward. Peaking, you got to get used to peaking. Here's a side street building. This is at 35 millimeters, right? I like the light was reflecting off the windows across the street and hitting this building. So here's the center. That's really nice and sharp at 35 millimeters. Here's the upper left. It's definitely, it goes from sharper on the right to sort of blurry on the left. The Birkermeyer Sports Spot. They've been there for as long as I can remember. 70 millimeters. So this is going to be extremely sharp. And it is. This is on the lower left, and it's really nice and sharp. Now, the lens at f8, but since it's 70 millimeters at f11. And here's another wide angle view. The peaking really takes a lot to get used to, and this is, the focus was a little sharp, soft here.